What's up, guys? Let's talk about working with divas. What is a diva? A diva is defined as a self-important person who is temperamental and difficult to please. Some context for any potential new viewers here. I work in recording studios as an audio engineer. I have worked in studios in Illinois, in Los Angeles, in Las Vegas, and now here in Nashville, Tennessee. Clients I've worked with range all the way from John Legend to Justin Timberlake to Weezer to Metallica to Muse, Faith Hill to Neil Young, Frank Ocean, Common, Nas, B.O.B., all the way down to my homies that I went to high school with. Let me tell you, you will find divas in every income bracket and in every line of work. I'll share some of my experiences with you and maybe give you a couple ideas on how to navigate the waters for your own safety. But first, subscribe to the channel if you are new and smash that like button. The YouTube algorithm, that's all that I ask. Okay, thank you. Let's go. A couple of funny stories. Out of my 10 years of doing this, I have a few stories that immediately come to mind. First, there was a session with a very successful musician and quite an old man. I'm not gonna name any names here, sorry. We were doing this insane session where we were making a sample library of every instrument that this guy had collected over his entire 300-year lifespan. There were some warning signs about this character that I picked up early on in the session. Things like shouting at people, having extremely specific requests about specific types and specific flavors of sorbet ice cream from a specific store at a specific location that needed to be restocked every day. At one point, the guy was walking through the live room of the studio, which, by the way, was a historic and legendary studio. He literally threw a temper tantrum, which involved him yelling at everyone around him and literally throwing his bowl of ice cream onto the ground to where it shattered, made a huge mess, obviously ruined the special sorbet. Let me remind you, all of the people that he was yelling at are literally waiting on him in his every need. Without getting into all of the specific details, at one point, I wound up having to go and have a bunch of t-shirts made that had a joke printed on them for all of the staff to wear because this guy thought it was funny. Awesome. Now, the second story is about a session that I had with another older gentleman who had an early heyday from one song about 30 to 40 years ago, which is fine. Totally cool. But this guy was not just to me, but to his own personal engineer and the entire studio staff. He also had some really weird insecurities and paranoia, which led to quite a strange work environment. But the highlight of my time with this guy is when it came time to eat lunch. The way that ordering food works in a studio is that usually the session assistant takes everyone's order on the session, and then he brings it to the receptionist, who then places the order, calls it in, and then a runner or an intern leaves to go pick up the food. They bring it back, they organize all of the food, they label everything for whoever ordered it, they get all of the silverware, the dishes, they set the table, and they make it super nice and super easy so that the clients can just walk into the lounge and eat the food, or sometimes if the clients request, they will bring the food to the studio on a plate ready to go for them. That's what this guy requested. So the food arrives and the runner quietly opens the control room door to bring the food in. As he walks in, the client starts yelling at this guy for bringing his food into the studio, saying he didn't want his food in the studio. I'm not a big fan of this, so I said, hey, listen, it's not his fault. I told him to bring the food in here because you asked me to. And then the client turns his attention to me and he says, so it's your fault. You f***ed up then. There's like a table that we had set up because we were gonna eat in there. He starts walking over and he pulls out this pocket knife and he says, you know what happens in China when you mess up? He says, you lose a digit. So my blood was pretty hot at this point, but I knew that this guy was all talk and nothing was going to happen. So I take my hand and I put it down on the table and I said, with a smile on my face, go ahead and pick one. I did this in an attempt to de-escalate the situation and give him a smile as a way out. Of course, he sort of shrugs it off. We wound up eating in the lounge. After this, I walk back into my manager's office. I open the door. She looks up at me and I say, never again. I don't want to work with this guy ever again. And with no hesitation, she doesn't ask any questions. She says, done. She is awesome. By far my favorite boss I've ever had. And to her credit, she's been dealing with people like this for literally decades. Total badass. I have plenty of other stories similar to this that come to mind, but something to remember when you encounter people like this is their way of dealing with some sort of personal struggle or internal problem. It has nothing to do with you, and the best course of action is to just be awesome at whatever it is that you are there to do. Back when I was in audio engineering school, one of the classes that we took was called Studio Etiquette, arguably one of the most important classes out of the entire program, in my opinion. One of the lessons that we learned was sort of tongue-in-cheek named the Cheeto Rule. The Cheetos Rule was really a reminder to stick to whatever you are being paid to do and nothing more. For instance, let's say you're in a room with a client. The client is having a little dilemma with the producer and turns his attention to you and says, "Hey man, what did you think of that last performance I had?" You should ask yourself, what am I being paid to do right now? Am I being paid to give my opinions on the client's performance? If the answer is no, you need to find a clever way to not answer the question and redirect the attention to you just being awesome at your job. The way to do this would be to say something like, "Oh man, I'm not really sure, but did you want me to grab you a coffee or like some Cheetos or something?" Because inevitably what winds up happening if you don't do that and you say something like, "Yeah man, that was awesome. I loved it. You did a good job." Then the client turns to the producer and says, "Hey, this guy says that it sounds awesome. I agree with him." Then the producer turns to you and says, "Cool, well, you're fired." So if there's any sort of dilemma and it's beyond your pay grade, you should just stick to your guns and do whatever it is that you're being paid to do. If your job is to work directly with the clients and they're being insane, you still have to walk that line of doing your job to the best of your abilities while reminding yourself, don't take it personally. Finding ways to redirect their attention is going to be the best way to de-escalate these situations. Sometimes it can be so obvious that that's what you're doing that the person may laugh because, I mean, it is quite funny. At the end of the day, just use your head. Don't take it personally. Do your job to the best of your ability and people will recognize that. People do recognize when they were acting like a diva and will look back and think, man, I was being pretty unreasonable and that guy who was working with me was awesome. I would love to have that guy with me the next time I come back. And that's what you want. You want to be remembered as that guy who is awesome and handled a difficult situation exceptionally. So if you like this video, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button if you have not already. And if you're still here, tell me down in the comments about a crazy experience that you've had with some sort of diva or client or coworker or anything like that. I'd love to hear about it. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.